Good morning, boys and girls. I hope you are having a lovely Tuesday. I am so sorry that I am not here today. I have a doctor's appointment for a vaccination for COVID, but tomorrow I will be back. So please make sure that you're listening to Mrs. Cunningham and doing what she asks you to do. If you are in the classroom, please make sure that you are labeling all of your school supplies with your name with a permanent marker so that if you lose anything or accidentally put it somewhere, I can return it back to you. Another reminder is that please remember to be washing your hands with soap and water in the back of the classroom when you need to, and using hand sanitizer. There are multiple hand sanitizers around the room that you can use. There are school supplies that you can borrow and use in the back as well. Just make sure that you use hand sanitizer before you touch anything so that no one gets sick. And that's pretty much it, I believe. So we're going to start first with lesson number 32, page 153. So please make sure that you're pulling out your math books. Right now, I want you to listen to the Zern. They do a really good job with showing you visually how to do these problems, and then we're going to turn to our math homework and problem sets, okay? So words to numbers.
Hi, Zerner. Today we'll build and evaluate lots of different math expressions. Let's warm up with this one. Twice the sum of 3 and 1. Take a look at the math words in this expression. How can we show twice a number?
Very cool. So we're showing twice a number. That means we're showing double or 2 times. So the word twice means to multiply by 2. So I'm going to click on multiply by 2. Now the next thing they ask you is which operation do we use to find a sum? Remember, the word sum means that I am solving the answer to an addition problem. So the word sum means to add. It does not mean to multiply, and it does not mean division. You guys learned this before. So sum means to add. Now, twice the sum of 3 and 11. The sum, I said earlier, means to add. So I'm adding 3 and 3 and 1. So we have here 3 and 1, and we're adding the sum. So this one is the correct one. This one says subtraction or difference, then it would be this one. But in this case, it says sum. So we're going to click on 3 plus 1. Now, it asks you to select the expression that represents twice the sum of 3 and 11. So twice the sum of 3 and, why do you keep saying 11? Twice the sum of 3 and 1. So we knew earlier that it's 3 plus 1. This one also says 3 plus 1. But notice that one is division and the other one is multiplication. I told you guys earlier that when you're using the number twice, that means that you're multiplying times 2. So I'm clicking on the first one right there, 2 times 3 plus 1.
2 times the quantity, 3 plus 1. We need to remember to have these parentheses so that we add before we do the multiplication. Otherwise, you would go from left to right and multiply first. Now let's show this same expression another way. Which other expression also represents twice the sum of 3 and 1?
Awesome. So we have here 2 divided by 3 plus 1. We have 2 plus 1 times 2, and we have 2 times 3 plus 1. So they're asking me which other expression also shows the same thing. So we know that we're multiplying times 2. This one shows me that I'm multiplying times 2. This one is dividing by 2, and this one adds a 1 at the end. So this is the only one that makes sense. Notice that instead of the 2 being in the front, it is in the back, and that works too, because your answer will be the same, right? So it's okay if you put times 2 in the back or in the front. You'll see that sometimes for multiple choice questions, they try to trick you. So make sure that you are double checking.
Now let's look at half the sum of 3 and 1. Will the value of half the sum of 3 and 1 be more than or less than twice the sum of 3 and 1.
Okay, now they want us to compare less than and greater than. Remember that the shark likes to eat the greater number, right? So half the sum of 3 and 1 will be less than twice the sum of 3 and 1. And then we have half the sum of 3 and 1 will be greater than twice the sum of 3 and 1. So right here we have half the sum. So you're dividing, you have half of 3 and 1. So we have 4 right here. And over here you also have half the sum of 3 and 1. Over here you have twice the sum of 3 and 1. Now half and twice are two different numbers. This is the only difference, the word half and twice. When you double something, that means that you'll have twice. When you are cutting something in half, right, that means that you have less of. You're dividing it by 2. So in this case, half the sum of 3 and 1 will be less than twice the sum of 3 and 1. So what does half the sum of 3 and 1 look like? We're looking at the number 1/2. 1/2 means that you're basically dividing, right? So you're having half the sum of 3 and 1. So we have the option here of multiplying or dividing. It doesn't tell me to necessarily divide, but it does tell me that I'm doing half of 3 and 1. Sorry, I have some alarms that go off. So half the sum of 3 and 1 would be this one right here. Okay, now it says, can we represent the words using division? Yes, you can definitely use division, right? So we're using division, then we would write it as 3 plus 1 divided by 2.
To show 1/2, we can multiply by 1/2, or we can divide by 2. Let's finish our warm-up with one more expression. The difference...
Okay, I'm going to pause there because I want you guys to jump to your problem set. So please make sure that you're turning to page 153 in your math book and beginning to pull out your math book. Now, this is a good time to pause to prepare students to allow them to get time to pull out their math books and then have their pencils out, their erasers out, a highlighter out if you want to use that. So please make sure you're pulling out those materials. So number 1, it says here, circle the expression equivalent to the sum of 3 and 2 divided by 1/3. So they want me to look for something that is equivalent. The word equivalent means equal. So I'm looking for a number that is equal to the sum of 3 and 2. The sum, remember that sum means to add. 3 and 2. So they want me to add the sum of 3 and 2 and then divide it by 1/3. So if I were to divide this by 1/3, I would write it like this, and I could put the whole expression underneath just like that, or I can just leave on the side. So the only one that does that is this one right here. We have the sum of 3 and 2 divided by 1/3. This one is incorrect because it doesn't say you have the sum of 3, but you don't have the sum of 2. 3 and 2 needs to go together in order to make it correct. And this one is the sum of 3 and 2, and then they divided by 3, which is incorrect. And over here we have 1/3 divided by, which can change the entire problem. So in this case, this is the only one that is correct. So these two are incorrect. I'm going to cross it out. Now for number 2, they ask you to circle the expressions equivalent to 28 divided by the difference between 4/5 and 7/10. Again, they have the word equivalent, and equivalent means equal. They're looking for an expression that is equal to. So we have 28 divided by the difference, 28 divided by. So we have 28 divided by. Difference means to subtract, and they want you to subtract 4/5 and, oops, I almost put a plus sign, 4/5 and 7/10. So I'm going to look for expressions that look like that. So we have 28 divided by, and 28 divided by can be written like this, where 28 is at the top, and then the rest of them are on the bottom, which is 28 divided by 4/5 and 7/10. So this one is correct. And this one can also be written like this, straight across. So both of these are correct. These two do not make sense because 28 needs to go first. So in this case, 28 is not first here, so that's incorrect. 28 is first here, but notice that they said 4/5 and 7/10. They switched these two, so that makes it incorrect. So I'm crossing that one out too. Okay. Now for problem number 3, it tells me to fill in the chart by writing an equivalent numerical expression. So I am going to highlight that. The word equivalent means equal. Numerical expression means a number equation. So I need to look for something that is equal to the number expression. That looks like an A. And remember, feel free to pause using the pause button so that students have enough time to write down the problem. Okay. Problem number 3, fill in the chart. So looking here, it says half as much as the difference between 2 and 1/4 and 3/8. So we have half as much. The word half means I'm writing it as either dividing by 2 or writing it as 1/2. Okay, so you have 2 ways to write that one. And the word difference means to subtract. So this is a subtraction problem. What am I subtracting? I am subtracting 2 and 1/4 and 3/8. That's what I am subtracting. So I have 1/2 and I'm subtracting 2 and 1/4 and 3/8, right? And I'm dividing that by 2. I could have also written that as 1/2, just like what we did up here, but it is up to you. You can write 2 or 1/2. It would be the same. Now for problem B, again, we have the word difference. Difference means to subtract. They want you to subtract 2 and 1/4 and 3/8. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to write that down first, 2 and 1/4 minus 3/8. And then they want you to divide by 4. So I put divide by 4 right there. I'm going to highlight this so you guys can see where everything is coming from, color coded. Okay. The next one, it says 1/3 of the sum. So we have 1/3. I'm going to use a different color, 1/3, and I'm writing it right here. 1/3 of the sum. Remember, the word of means to multiply. So that's why we're multiplying. And if it doesn't tell you what's in between, it's always multiplication. Okay? Those parentheses cause the problem to be multiplying against each other. So we have the sum of, sum means to add. We talked about that earlier. We're adding 7/8 and 22/10. So we are adding 7/8 and 22/10. So that's what we have here, 7/8 and 22/10. For problem D, we have add 2 and 2/10 and 7/8. And then triple the sum. So we have 2, 22. Oh, I forgot to write the decimal. 22, 2.2, and 7/8. So we're adding that. And then triple the sum. The word triple means that you're multiplying 3 times. 3 times. So that's what I'm writing right here, 3 times. You could have wrote 3 times in front or in the back. That's up to you. It would be the same answer and it would both be correct. Now, this question here says compare the expressions 3a and 3b. Without evaluating, identify the expression that is greater. Explain how you know. So, looking at this, we're looking at these 2 problems right here. We're looking at 3a and 3b. So these 2 problems, I wrote it down right here. I wrote it right here. This is 3a, this is 3b. So now that I have those 2 expressions, I compared. I know that this one, 3a, is greater than 3b because of one thing. There is a divided by 4 and divided by 2, right? So divided by 4, divided by 2. Notice that 2 and 1/4 minus 3/8 is the same expression we have here. So these are the same so far, be equal. But this is what makes it different. Divided by 2 and divided by 4. When you divide a number by 2, it is going to be twice smaller. That means that you are dividing it with 2 people. Imagine a pizza, you're dividing it with 2 people. That means that each person gets a half, right, of the pizza. But if you divide it by 4, then they get 1/4 of the pizza. So 1/4 of a pizza is less than half of a pizza. You would want to get the bigger piece, and that's why the shark is eating the greater number. Okay? So that's how you know. You know based on the division sign. It tells you how much you're dividing it by. Okay? And that is all for your problem set. There is a video on your exit ticket, and there is also a video for your homework. So please make sure that you are watching the video for your exit ticket and you're watching the video for your homework to complete in class. This should all be completed by 9:30, okay? So please make sure that you guys get that done. I'm going to pause this video. This is your problem set video, and then you guys are going to do your exit ticket.